Blah. Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Annie. As you may know by the this up here. Um, but like, hi. My name's Annie, and like, it's been a while since I've streamed, like a really long while. And I just wanted to do it again because it was fun for me, and like I haven't done it in so long, and like blah, you know. Anyways, I haven't done it in a while, and I decided that now was the best time because like I'm off of work. I recently got my wisdom teeth cut out, all four of them. It was on a few days ago, so I still have like another week to go until like I can start eating normally. So that really sucks for me because I love eating. Eating is like how I live. Like I love eating. Like, give me 1 second. Does that help? I don't know if it does or not. I don't think it does. Lights. Yeah, it doesn't really help. I probably should buy curtains. Anyways, yeah, no. Okay. Anyways, today we're going to be looking at Call Me Chris, like I did last time. That video was really fun for me, and I figured that, like, since it's so easy to do, that I could just, like, do this right here. This is her video, Child Serial Killers, right here. And, I really wanted to look at this because, like, I don't know if I'll be able to watch the whole video or not. I'm hoping I can. Anyways, what I mean by like why I really wanted to look at this is because children's psychology is really interesting. It's definitely a piece of psychology you don't see a lot, like because well, obviously children aren't super like they're not like they're not just over here committing crimes and murders on the daily, which I know there are a lot of underaged people, but I wouldn't count that as a child, more or less. Um, I don't know what she means by child serial killers. I don't know if she means like 10-year-olds or like 17-year-olds because legally 17 is still a child, but you can be tried as an adult. So I don't know what she means by this. At the same time, though, I do really like Call Me Chris, Kelmiris, whatever she prefers to go by. And honestly, like I would ask permission to record this, but like I'm gonna be honest here. Who's gonna be watching this? Literally nobody watches my shit, and I'm fine with that. I do this purely for my fun. Also, this would be a really funny thing to look back on one day, like if I have my daughters or something. Because like, getting a little bit off track here, I am going to have three daughters. I have that planned. When I turn 30, I am adopting three little girls: Henrietta, Lenore, and Agneta or Agneta, which I really like. So, yeah, got off track a little bit here. So we are going to be watching Call Me Chris, and hopefully she's like super. She's always really informative. I really like her content. She's always super nice. Like, yeah. Ignore my messy ass bed behind me. Okay.
In a remote village in India, a woman reported her baby missing. The police would arrive, and that's when a young boy would come forward smiling, and he would lead them right to the body. And this is not a work of fiction, as terrifying as it sounds. This is the true story of Amarjit Sada, a boy who by the age of 8 had taken 3 lives.
Okay, so she is talking about like actual like children, like actual little children. It's very interesting. Because stuff like that where like children can be pushed to commit such murders, there's a lot of nurture versus nature stuff that can be implemented in there. There's a lot of things that could be involved with their upbringing, how they were raised, how they were influenced, who may have influenced them. It's all very interesting, especially with the mind of a child. A lot of killers, well, not a lot. I want to say there are, well, in the U.S. there's over 1,000 convicted serial killers, which is a scary amount. Anyways, there is a lot of killers who kill for a reason only known to them. Like, let's say I was a serial killer who said that the world would die if I didn't kill these certain people. That would make absolutely no sense in any regard besides my own. And that's actually how it is a lot of times for psychology and a lot of modus operandi for killers. Like, what was his name? There was a guy, I forgot his name, who believed that the world was going to collapse if he didn't kill a woman every single day. And it's genuinely gruesome to think about that, because like, as a sane person, as me, as whoever's watching this, you think, who would do that? Obviously you wouldn't. Obviously you won't die if, obviously the world isn't going to collapse, and blah 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 blah. See, that makes sense to us because we can understand that, but like, they really can't sometimes. So like, it's very complex. The entire question of psychology is a very morbid and drawn out one. It's all very interesting, and frankly, I would love to like talk and get into it with an actual psychology expert, but it's very interesting right now. Let's just continue on with what we're doing.
Born into poverty, raised in silence, and driven by something even his own parents couldn't understand, Amarjeet would become known as the youngest serial killer in recorded history. But his case is only the beginning, which is horrifying. Because in this video, we are going to uncover 3 of the most disturbing cases of juvenile killers the world has ever seen, spanning rural India, suburban Canada, and the outskirts of Madrid. Children who killed without any remorse, and victims barely older than toddlers and some even younger, so trigger warning there. And crimes that challenge everything we thought we knew about psychology, justice, and innocence. From the cultural stigmas that hid warning signs to legal systems unequipped for murderers in grade school. This is not just a story about murder. It's a story about what happens when childhoods turn deadly. Crime, conspiracy, cults, serial killers, and murder. All things that I love to consume, and I know you do too, you sick, twisted, beautiful, intellectually minded freak. And today we are doing just that, and my lord, it's these kids. I thought I was scared of kids already, but it's about to get wicked twisted up in here. So like I said, trigger warning there. We're gonna be talking about kids. It's like psychopathic children, and also obviously some of the deaths involve children as well, so just know that before going into this. But without further ado, let's unbuckle our seatbelts, go Mach 5 down the highway, slam on the brakes, and bust through this windshield into these 3 cruel children together. So before Amarjeet Seda ever took a life, before his name would unsettle headlines across the world, he was just a kid. He was just a child, born into a system that never saw him coming. Amarjeet was born in 1998 in Bukaresaya, a rural district of Bihar, India. And at the time, the region was one of the most impoverished and neglected in the entire country. The infrastructure was very minimal, electricity was very unreliable, and education was a luxury to say the least. And healthcare, especially mental health care, was practically non-existent. So in these forgotten pockets of India, superstition often stood in place of science, and mental illness was just not understood at all. It was basically just feared or concealed completely, or just blamed on other entities or spirits. So families struggling with psychological disorders just didn't seek therapy. They thought something was wrong with them, and not that something very common was wrong with them, but something like was inside them and wrong with them, if that makes sense. So they would turn to local shamans, or worse, they would just do nothing at all. So the fear of public shame meant that most of these cases were just buried quietly, especially in a small, tightly woven community where reputations quite literally meant survival. And in Amarjeet's village, poverty wasn't just a statistic. It was basically just a way of life. So his family lived in a very densely packed neighborhood made of mud brick homes and open drains. His parents would work as laborers, earning barely enough to feed their children. But more dangerous than the poverty here was the silence. Children with any sort of behavioral issues were rarely seen as mentally unwell. They were called troublesome, moody, or simply cursed, like actually they thought they were cursed. And few recognized the warning signs, obviously, given the lack of care. And fewer still had the means to actually act on them. And so when Amarjit began exhibiting troublesome behavior, no one asked questions that should have come first. You know, questions like, what the hell was going on inside Amarjit's mind? What's causing him to act out like this? But instead, like so many other children born into these margins, he was just left to his own world. One that was shaped by suffering, superstition, and silence. And in that silence, something very, very, very dark began to grow. So Amarjit entered the world as another child born into poverty, in a village where survival came way before any sort of psychology. But long before Amarjit ever picked up a brick, which we'll get to, there were signs. First off, he was never liked by other children. He didn't really have any friends. Because in the village, boys his age played together and swam on the pond, and when other children asked him to play, he reportedly would sometimes lash out in sudden bursts of anger at them. So they were like, whoa, okay, shit, dude, you don't have to play Marco Polo with us. Like, I don't know. So villagers would later describe him as strange, but polite, which I find very hard to believe, but also notably withdrawn. He was very to himself. And looking back, these were the early indicators of detachment.
Whoopsies. Okay. Okay. So as a talk about this, isolation can definitely lead to some instability of mental state, and that's clearly a very stagnant point here, as he purposely ostracized himself. He purposefully, when he was invited, as she said, lashed out with violent outbursts. And also, as she said, he was regarded as polite, which is definitely interesting, considering what she just said. As the, psychology of it really, wrapped around right now, it's really wrapping around my head right now, and it's very confusing. Because psychology is largely based off of adults' actions. Child psychology is a completely separate and completely isolated sister psychology. It's not related to it at all, because what you do as a child and what you do as an adult can be very different. While there are definitely some overlaps, I want to say that not every adult will act in the same manner as a child would. A child has largely no sense of consequence and takes bigger risks. The adult mind is more apprehensive. It's a lot more, smart, cunning, another word. But there is a lot that psychology can explain, and there's definitely a lot that psychology has done over the years. And I want to say that, this is definitely a lot for, now. 3 adolescent serial killers, especially the youngest one right now, being 8, is crazy. Because what could have possibly made him have an outburst like that, to the point where he would kill, I'm guessing his family, but I have not seen this case, I haven't heard about it, I'm just hearing about it now. I'm assuming that he killed his family, or he killed another family with a minor or an infant. And that's definitely terrible. But this is just very interesting psychology right here. And I don't mean to disrespect any memory of the dead or anything like that. I believe that everybody should be treated equally, fairly. I believe that everybody should be who they want to be. So I have no idea where I was going with this, but let's just continuing on.
And harmful potential. And his mother, Parul, noticed the difference too. Amarjit just had this temper and just couldn't explain. She didn't know where it came from. And instead of turning to doctors, she would turn to tradition. She would smear black kajal beneath his eyes to ward off evil, and placed an amulet of protection from the Hanuman temple around his arm. But no amulet could stop what was manifesting inside this evil little child. But obviously, she didn't know any better. She just thought that maybe it was an evil spirit. Maybe that this will help, you know? So it's of no fault of her own. Amarjeet would have no formal education as well. There was basically no access to structure, therapy, or any sort of guidance. Some reports even mention neglect from his parents, and it would be around this time that tragedy would first strike. Seemingly out of nowhere, Amarjeet's infant cousin would die under suspicious circumstances, and his family would have to make a devastating choice. They would keep quiet. They would call it an accident, and they would shield him. That they are responsible for. That I don't have an excuse for them for. So basically, they were rewarding the behavior of their murdering child. Not the best parent, but probably worst parent award, I'd say. So with not punishing your child or not making
Okay, so that was a very big lapse in judgment right there. Like, everything that she just said. Like, not judgment. I meant that was a lot of information. What she said is that he was neglected, which is something you can see a lot in hundreds of serial killers. Abuse, neglect, SA. It's all very, witnessing stuff like that is all very traumatic. And it's something that can be seen across psychology that is bountiful. People with ASPD, people who kill, people who just do what they do, serial rapists, it's all very interesting. But yeah, abuse is something that is definitely seen across thousands, if like hundreds, if not thousands of cases regarding that. My baby cousin is crying downstairs. She sounds so adorable. Give me 1 second. Where's my phone? I'm going to show you a picture of her. She's adorable. And right here. That's too bright. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I know this isn't important right now, but like, you gotta see. Look at that. Look at the baby. She's so chunky. That's me, who she's laying on. Because I'm her favorite person in the world. Yeah, getting off topic. Abuse is definitely something that is all over the place in psychology. It can affect people in so many different ways and so many different instances that have happened and such. It's frankly crazy to think that something like that, like, I was a victim of abuse and still go through it quite a lot myself. But as you can see, I am mentally sound and I am doing perfectly fine. But for some people, like, let's say Jeffrey Dahmer, he had to fight off regressed feelings of homosexuality. And because of that, it really just stigmatized him a lot. So I will be right back. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay, sorry about that. As I was mentioning, psychology is very interesting. It's a lot of very interesting guesswork involved. Like depression can play a huge part in it, abuse can. It's all very interesting, but let's just
them be held accountable, the darkness inside him would quickly unfold. So like I said, his first victim was very close to home. It was his younger cousin. And there seems to be a bit of discrepancy from various sources of the age of the victim. But his cousin was an infant. So one day, the infant would seemingly vanish. And shortly thereafter, her body would be found. And it was clear that she had been beaten to death, and there would be no trial, no police reports. Her family, basically Amarjeet's family, just chose to stay silent, even though they knew that Amarjeet had done the crime. And then, not long after, his infant sister would be his next victim. And his sister would be just 8 months old. And Amarjeet would strangle her to death with his bare hands. Like, just horrifying. But again, the family did not report the crime. And whether out of shame, fear, or just pure disbelief, they buried not just their child, but the truth. So in 2007, the village was shaken when a third child would go missing. 6-month-old Khushbu, the daughter of a neighbor. Her mother...
Okay, this is very interesting. This is an interesting case. He killed 2 girls and 1 more who we're gonna learn about in a second. But the 2 girls that we've known about, the 2 young girls, were infants, and he was, I want to say, 8 years old at the time. And it clearly speaks to the power imbalances. He knows that he can't kill somebody who is bigger, stronger than him, so he goes for people who are weaker. He has an inferiority complex. It's giving, like, he's super ashamed, so he kills, but he doesn't know why, but we'll see. Killing 2 of his family members speaks to him being a family annihilator, which is interesting, because usually people like that, family annihilators, are have some sort of deep-seated resentment at them. Whether it's a husband who found out his wife was cheating, to a teenage son feeling like he's being repressed. It's all very interesting. But something that is interesting with family annihilators is that a lot of the time, the suspect or unsub, whatever, usually family annihilators are preferential killers, which means they go after people who they have a preference for. Like, say if I was a family annihilator and my family was all blonde people with blue eyes, that's who I would go for, because that's who would remind me the most of my family, and I would try to relive it, try to keep exacting revenge, because revenge does not bring the catharsis that we seek most of the time. I know it would for me, but what do I know? Anyways, let's just keep moving on.
Had left her sleeping at the local school while she just stepped away. But when she returned, the child was completely missing, and no one was prepared for the truth that had actually occurred. So the community gathered around and a search began to break out. But not long after that, Amarjeet would step forward and he would confess. Very casually, even cheerfully. And officers just couldn't believe it. They thought naturally that it was a prank. I mean, this kid is 8 years old. He's a small child. How could he have done this horrible crime? And if he was to do it, maybe it was an accident, but why would he be happy about it? They were just really confused. But that's when he would lead them to the body. Hidden away, her tiny body lay buried in a shallow grave. And the infant had been strangled and bludgeoned to death with a brick. And when questioned by police, Amarjeet reportedly smiled through his entire confession, and even asked for biscuits at the beginning of it. And as investigators listened, just completely stunned, he described the murder with chilling detachment, just pure psychopathic behavior. He was quoted to say, "She was sleeping in the school. I took her a little away, killed her with a brick, and buried her. Just like absolutely chilling. There's just something about a child with so much detachment that is next level horrifying. So forensic psychologists would be brought in, and their official conclusion would be that Amarjeet was a sadist, a child who found pleasure in inflicting pain. So this was not a
Amarjeet being a sadist actually fits really well, because as it was seen here, he smiled through his confession and smiled while talking through the death of the infants, which does mean he derived some pleasure and or satisfaction from it. So it would fit in the sense of him being a sadist. That's why I look tilted. Sorry, my camera is fucked up. I was like, is my head wrong? Why do I look tilted? Okay, there. Still look tilted. Anyways, but it definitely does speak to him being a sadist. It is a very astute, inference, because sadists, as they sound, are sadistic. They get off on inflicting pain and torturing their victims. And there's even some sexual regards to the matter with kinks. Like, some people like being whipped, some people like being demeaned. There's a lot of different psychoanalytics that can go on in this point in time, and it's very interesting. Sadists, especially, interestingly enough, are actually like usually very shameful. They usually take their regressed feelings that they keep repented inside of themselves and try to burst them out, and like end up lashing out on other people because they're ashamed of what they believed in. Interestingly enough, that is not what's happening in this regard. Because usually sadists let out their pleasures in privacy with their victim. But this is a very interesting sadistic matter, because in this instance, he is a sadist, as he does derive pleasure from pain, the pain in others. It's also just very interesting because it speaks to a level of narcissism, sort of, where I may have been wrong about the inferiority and the power imbalance. But what I mean by narcissism is that he takes pleasure in his kills, and that he would feel somewhat insulted if it was ever insisted that he was cowardly or weak, something that he wouldn't be able to easily accept. So, we'll see.
Prank gone wrong. It was not the product of a playground fight. This was something far, far darker and far rarer. And now the world would finally take notice. A little too late, if you ask me. So when the news broke that an 8-year-old had killed 3 infants, it sent shockwaves across India and the world. But once the horror of his confession settled, authorities were left with the difficult question: what do you do with a killer child? And at the time of Amarjeet's arrest in 2007, India law was very clear. A child under the age of 18 could not be tried as an adult, and there would be no prison sentence, no criminal trial, no possibility of life imprisonment, and certainly no death penalty. So instead, Amarjeet was placed in a juvenile detention facility, the only legal option available at the time. And there, he would spend the next 10 years, the maximum sentence allowed for a minor under Indian law. And behind closed doors, rehabilitation efforts would begin. And reports suggested he received counseling, education, and behavioral therapy. But the truth is, almost nothing is known about what happened inside those walls. There were no updates, 0 interviews, and the file.
And that is something that's also really scary about underage serial killers. The fact that there is an entire real possibility that they could be tried as a minor and get a much lighter sentence in that occurrence. Such as in this case, it's very interesting. I have no idea about Indian law, but as she said, he could not be tried as an adult, even as an 8-year-old. So that's very interesting in and of itself. Very interesting. Also, him receiving education within the municipal system, and also the maximum sentence only being 10 years is very interesting, also. But we'll see. I don't know. I say that a lot.
On Amarjit Seda slowly disappeared from public view. And then, in 2016, he would turn 18 years old. And under Indian law, his record was completely sealed. So with his file closed, his identity was changed to protect his future and prevent vigilante retaliation.
That's a bit scary, you know? Because that was recent. That wasn't like 1960 type shit. That was like yesterday. I was born in a year after he was convicted in 2007. Because, like, I'm pretty sure if I say my age, I'm gonna, like, get cut off. But, like, that's also very scary. He turned 18 in 2016, which means there is a real possibility he could still be alive. Unless she goes on to say that somebody killed him or some shit. I don't know. Oops. Oopsie poopsie.
Which I'm like, don't let that guy out. If he can do that at 8, what the could he do at 18 years old? Now, he's in his mid-20s now. That's terrifying. And today, his current location is completely unknown to the public. Some say he relocated under government protection, but others believe he may have quietly reintegrated into society under a new identity. And what remains is just his horrifically chilling legacy. So Amarjit Seda is still confirmed the youngest serial killer in modern history. And somewhere, perhaps walking among us, he just lives his life as a full-grown man who is a full-blown psychopathic sadist, with his past completely erased and his secrets completely buried. So the question still lingers, can someone who kills before they learn to even write truly be free from who they were? To be honest, I don't think so. In this case, I feel like this is pure nature. I feel like he was born with this in him, and I don't know if there's any way out of it. I mean, I hope that psychologists and professionals were able to get through to him, but that's very scary. Very, very scary. But that brings us to our next child, and that is Jasmine Richardson.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to cover this one yet, or if I'll keep it open for next time. But it's very interesting. Child psychology is very interesting, but child and a female is interesting because only about 5% of serial killers are women. And that's a very interesting statistic in the matter because it really speaks to the fact of how men are a lot more predisposed to become less than adequately sane, which is definitely interesting. And not to mention she was also a child, which is very interesting as well. But being a woman is terrifying. I already know that. Being in America, especially as a woman, was even more terrifying. My coworker's grandmother was shot in the chest by her husband and nothing happened, and it was fully known. But we'll see. But the whole psychology around his case was very interesting in the regards of like he was a child, he was the youngest ever known, he's still alive and out there somewhere, which is terrifying to kind of think about because anybody in their mid-20s could be that serial killer if they were Indian and a boy. But that's genuinely a little crazy to think about. And like, as she said, with his age, he could do way more than what he did when he was 8 years old. Being a mid-20 adult, as an 8-year-old, he went for infants. As a 20-year-old, he might go for little children, age 10 or so. But that is it is sad how high that regard is in the matter, and frankly, I do not have the time to talk about it. I'm gonna go, and I will love you all. Goodbye.